said, you're still in the head of a relatively young person, and when they think or what the events around them. The coloration of the style that I use, it seemed to fall naturally into more of slightly a juvenile style of writing, so that you don't have a complexity that you would have later in the book. So as the book goes along and as he grows up, I think things do become more complex. Mm-hmm. But there are some events in the beginning where you're actually inside the head of a young boy to quite an extent. And even when I describe something around a situation, it still is, the writing, I think, has a certain juvenile feel to it. For juvenile writing, for young people in their teens or even maybe younger, 10, 12, 14 years old, who know how to read English but don't know how to read it in a great deal of complexity. So I suppose some of the information that I put across, though, is a little more, maybe more complex than that. If there's any bit that comes in as historical or that kind of thing, I think that it's not at the so juvenile a level. But even when he becomes a member of the, even when he's introduced in the first few days to something like CRASH program, which is a farm program for collective farming involving the machinery and so forth, he's only about 12 years old. And he's going through military training, the beginning of something that, in my own past, I have undergone. So I know what it's like, but it's what a kind of a bit of a shock to somebody who hasn't entered the military, ever been in that kind of situation. Mm-hmm. The initial days, the transformation of the civilian person to military person, shaving of the head, any beard you might have, and everybody wears the same clothes, and you have to wear shoes, and all of these things. But it's very interesting. In this situation, you also have someone who is, they have considered that. They've considered their young people training. And so the military personnel also are they're very aged. Some in their 20s, some are younger, like Mohammed, maybe. It's young. But to read for his action to the camp. I'll probably I probably won't this a progression from one thing to another. Right. So I'll go here and then go back there and talk about this and just hop about. So I think that it has quite a breadth. Mm-hmm. I like this one. This is when he's first coming to camp, and when he's driving into it. This part, the scene.
So the camp is in Somalia, just to.
It is indeed. It's in Somalia.
Our audience, yeah.
Yes, he's crossed the border, and that's another story. But I may go back to that. So, like I say, I may just hop about. I think that's might be more exciting in a way. I hope. So this is what it says. He's riding into the camp, and it says here, the CRASH program. This is the title of this section. The CRASH program, a no-nonsense introduction. The 3-hour ride to the camp over rough roads in the large, well-maintained trucks was not as uncomfortable as the ride from Ochale to Hargeisa. As the turn onto the road that led into the camp, as at the turn on the road that led into the camp, the canvas that covered the back of the truck was drawn back, allowing the recruits to take in the view around them. They bounced along for about 15 minutes until they reached the site. It was in the middle of rich farmland. Mohammed could tell the soil was good because there was an abundance of vegetables as well as grain. Cows, sheep, and goats grazed in the neighboring pastures. He could even make out a few camels next to a far-off forest. It was amazing how, in some directions, he could gaze out over the prairie and see for miles, farther than he could in a day, sunlight off house tens of miles distance. Looking westward, he saw the other camp, a school building, and beyond the border village of Tagwajale. It was a strange feeling to be in many places at once. So this is how he described it to me. Mm-hmm. So this line, it was a strange feeling to be in many places at once. So I like that because that is an unusual way to put it. And it gives you an interesting feeling yourself when you read it.
Right.
Because the sense of being here simultaneously and being able to see that place. So it's like being in it's like changing a spatial situation into a rather, how would we say, spatial situation into a temporal one. So although they extend, he feels their presence at that moment. I never thought of that way before. And this sort of introduced that concept of how it must have felt to him at that time. That he's in those places all at the same time, but they are so far apart. So I like that. Now he says the government farm was unlike anything in Hargeisa, unlike anything Mohammed had come across in his travels. So he talks about the machines, the plowing of the fields, big tractors, enormous combines and tractors, and so on and so forth. And what I like is I move on. As they pass the east side of the bungalow, this is the bungalow where Colonel Ure happened to reside. He was the head of the camp commander. So he says, as they passed the east side of the bungalow, several soldiers emerged, and one of them ordered the convoy to turn south and stop west of the unfinished hangar, where the recruits climbed out of the trucks. The group of officers, having followed the trucks, approached and assembled the recruits in ragged formation facing west in the finished hangar, which is described in previous paragraphs. A soldier came forward and immediately caught their attention. She was strong, attractive. She was a strong, attractive woman with a ready smile who greeted newcomers with a warmth that put them at ease. So this is not what I found when I went. They were all guys, and they weren't trying to put you at your ease. This was not military. But these are boys, some of them. He's 12. So this is a difference. You see how this is a woman. She's a soldier. And she's not actually a soldier, but she has the capacity that some soldiers would have in this situation. So she was a strong, attractive woman, and she introducing herself as Khadija Crash. The woman welcomed them to Crash program, and then in a firm voice, wasted no time, telling them what they could and could not do. These are the rules. No cat, no smoking, no spitting, no pissing wherever you like, only in the washrooms. And you must ask permission to go anywhere, for instance, the washroom, or to pray. If you ask for permission to go to the city, it will be denied. I said denied. You will wear only clothing provided by the camp. Shoes must be worn. And this is only the beginning. Tomorrow you will have your heads and beards shaved off, all of it. Because I speak Oromo and Somali, both Oromo and Somali, I am the person you want to talk to if you want something and don't know if you should or should not ask. If you should or should not ask for it. Ask me. No problem. If it's reasonable, I will do what I can for you. If it's not, I'll tell you straight out. She went on to explain the layout of the camp, and so that I don't have to go into that. But in this one, but it's the presence of the woman, what she's like. First, she comes to him as, and them, all of them, as warm and someone that they can approach. But she also establishes right away her authority.
Right.
So I like that. This kind of being able to switch. It's very interesting.
Command of the place. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Also, seeing a woman,
but it's a shock because they didn't,
in that context, it must have been unusual for him and for the rest of the Somali soldiers.
It was also unusual for the publisher because when they read it, the copywriter changed it. They didn't. I can't remember exactly what they did, but they could not see the soldier as the woman. So when I went back to it, because of the changes, I had to change it back. But I had to clarify to make it. I also wanted the person reading it to be somewhat surprised.
Right. Yeah.
So when I did it back there, I had said a soldier came forward and immediately caught their attention. She was a strong, attractive woman. So I mean, by the way, they're expecting. And when I say a soldier came forward and immediately caught their attention, they're thinking of a guy, right away. It's not a guy, and I tell them right away. So I like that. That's a little experience. That is, I don't know if that was common to such programs that they formed it this way, but it seemed like a very intelligent arrangement when you read all of it. the response to issues and the personalities of the military men in the stories. They seem like good people. These are Somalis. These are warriors, but they seem very. It's not. I find in general that it's that way. There's interesting feel to his military experience at this level.
Yeah, and then so you have also the Russians that are involved in the training of the soldiers at the camp.
The which?
The
Russian.
Russian general, I think there's a Russian.
Oh yeah, Russian general. Yes, exactly. And oh yes, I can do that. I can go to that. Let's see if I can find that here. Shouldn't take too long. Yeah, he was. I believe it's Colonel Yuri. I think it is. Oh yeah, the colonel greeted them in Somali. Colonel Yuri. To show them he could speak some Somali, but then he switched to English, with Khadija, the woman, translating into Somali. The Oromos waited, because they didn't know Somali. Most of these Oromos didn't know Somali. Waited, bored. Finally, it was their turn. When Khadija started to speak in Oromo, the colonel interrupted her, saying in English, "I know about the Afrangalo. It so happened that when I first came to the mechanic, I had a mechanic who maintained my car. When I started to talk to him in Somali, the mechanic said he knew only a little Somali, because his first language was Afrangalo. I said, Afrangalo, what is that? He told me, they are a large number of people who live throughout eastern Ethiopia, in Somalia, and even in Kenya. I wanted to know more about these people, who I had never heard of before. So when I went back to Russia, yes? Did you have a question?
No, go ahead.
So when I went back to Russia, a month or so later for a little while, I searched for information on the Afrangalo and found a book in Russian that described these people, the Oromo. And the author spoke very favorably about them. I learned a lot. So I want you to know, I respect the Oromo. So that's a good position for him to be in a camp like that, you see. So, yeah. I'm just...
It's interesting, yes, because Russian generally there to train, the Somali.
Yeah, Somalis.
Yeah,
basically.
Somali fighters. Yeah.
But very the Oromo.
Right.
So there's a respect there for the Oromo by this Russian officer who's commander of the camp. Unlike the Amhara, lack of respect for the Oromo. I mean, it's 180 degrees out. And it was an individual that introduced him to it, his mechanic.
Right.
And so, and then he wanted to learn more. Just think of that. If somebody, a mechanic for your car, talked to you about something, and you discovered that he was interested in your people, and well, this sparked Colonel Yuri to want to know more. This is amazing. When he went back to Russia, he looked for a book.
Yes. There's a sense of curiosity, yeah, which is
yeah.
It's always
he wanted to know more.
A good trait to have, just to have this open mind, to learn more about others. I think it would go a long way, in terms of
yes, I think so too.
Establishing rapport.
But unfortunately, the Oromo, except for Mohammed, did not remain because they could see that the Somalis wanted to fight for the Somalis after a while, they knew that this was not what they wanted, so they left. But Mohammed knew that what he wanted was to become trained.
Right.
And so that he could be capable of training other Oromos. And he did, actually. So then we have here, so he talks about this, and this is where there's a little drama that comes up, because when he continues to speak, he's talking about the camp as an agricultural training. And in pages before, when it was given to believe that he was going to a military training camp, he would be there for things where this might be 6 months. Repair a truck. I don't want to do this. So this creates a bit of drama in here that I don't want to go into, but I want the prospective reader of the book to realize that there's a little drama coming up over the fact that what he's being told doesn't align with what he's been told previously as far as his being trained. So it creates a situation. And I don't want to read it because I want the buyer to enjoy it firsthand when he buys the book. He hands it and he reads. But that was quite interesting. There is this respect coming from somebody training him from Russia for the Oromo people because of the kind of experience that he had with an individual Oromo. And the thing is, with so many Oromos, you do have this kind of feeling. I mean, I myself have experienced this, where you have that feeling. Well, like with you and with others, there is it's warm, it's friendly, it's intelligent. So all of that is fun. So I like that. It's a good experience. No.
Yeah, we tend to be a little bit open-minded and
yeah,
friendly.
like you.
It's not a bad thing. Yeah.
So no, it's not a bad thing. So I've got here, and this is true of many of the experiences in the book that you find Mohammed undergoes, is what makes his presence in a situation so significant is that he is open. And it is that quality, that willingness to grant quite a bit of respect to the other person immediately. No questions asked. So, he doesn't, right away he comes to a person as an equal. He doesn't talk down to them. So this is one of his personal traits. But maybe it's an Oromo trait. It's not just personal. I don't know for sure. But definitely you find this in the book. But this is what makes him a successful negotiator. Because he's not trying to play the game of negotiating. Now when you see books out there, when you see these books out there on negotiations, they're telling you how to do it, how to spin, right? But this is not true negotiation. It's from the heart. And that's what you find.
Yeah, they call it the art of the deal,
yeah. Yeah. So, but it was crucial for Mohammed to find out, is this a camp just to learn how to be a farmer? That's not what I wanted to be. So there is a to-do. There's a little drama here.
Right.
And I'm not going to read it. Reader, you've got
that's the point. Yeah.
your point. I do want to ask you a little some of these things to see that it's going to look to you. And at the same time, many periods are very sad. There's a lot of tragedy involved, but it's back and forth. It's so you don't get bad times after bad times at times. You do good moments. It's all so.
Just like a story, yeah, it's always,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Ups and downs, and that's what make a good story, what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that keeps the reader reading, because once he's a little bit too down, then he comes to something that brings him up. And then when he moves on, you go into a territory that is not so happy. So I won't talk that much more about that one. Oh yes, and when it comes to this farm machinery thing, it wasn't that part, but I guess it was probably previously. But he is told by those being trained, farmers being trained on the farm, that it's not a military camp. So that's him off.
Right.
Now I hear called Mohammed the Linguist. I think that this is very. I'm not going to go into it to the point because it's another good story. The point about the good stories is that what?
Just give us, snapshot, just like highlight of the story.
Yeah, and let me give you some of what is said here. I will say this: it says Mohammed, he met with General Harvey. General Harvey was I think a regional leader, administrative leader, but he was the general of Hararge area. I'm not sure if I've got that right. Hargeisa, maybe. No, it had to be Hararge. Nope, when he was in Hargeisa.
All right.
Muhammad took to heart
The
General
Somali,
Hardy's.
Somali general, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And Major Assay's advice that he should try to learn the Somali language. So he was determined to learn it. Now he says here, to facilitate his learning, he incorporated the phonetic correspondence between Arabic script and Somali vocables. In this way, Muhammad could write down something he heard spoken in Somali and take the written word to someone who could recognize the pronunciation of the Somali word captured in the Arabic script. So he used at first Arabic script. Ziad Bari was going to use, did come to use Latin script for the Somali language. But at this point, he was using the Arabic script to write down. So he heard spoken, he gets something, he hears the way something sounds in Somali, and then he captures that same sound because he knows what that sound, what he has to write in Arabic that is the same sound. And then this is how he wrote Somali, I guess, to these people. And Muhammad continued this practice in the camp, taking his Somali sounds, capturing an Arabic friend. It's a fun relationship. Lad who enlightened with them of the sounds. So he would capture the word Somali said, I guess, also. So he would something smoke. He would do that, and then ask, "What does that mean? What's say it?" With Somali, that word. So what he was saying was a Somali word, and what that word meant. So that's kind of interesting. A lot of context there, but
right.
You understand. But
so Muhammad already knew how to speak Arabic and write.
Oh yes, he learned. That's right. He learned Arabic when he was very young, learning the Quran. So it was very. I think probably because probably it was very close to Oromo. So Oromo is the first language, but the second language is real close to it, which is Arabic. So I would say. So he probably knew Arabic about as well as he knew Oromo. Maybe not quite, but I suspect it was pretty close. So with his friend Guled's help, Muhammad quickly learned the language, Somalian. Because he was relatively fluent in Somali and Oromo languages, often called to resolve this between Oromo and Maoris. Using analytical skills he learned under immense tutelage in his home village. So developing characteristics to talk to people in languages, resolve issues that they had, negotiate for them. And so it made him stand out in the camp. So he was a standout in terms of intelligence, ability to do things like that. So, and he was a tall person. He's not a very tall person, but he was a small boy. He looked like he was younger than, he always looked like he was younger than he was. He often surprised people. Throughout the book, we point that out because people were surprised. Now, so I don't have to go into this, but it's fun when they have when Ziabari does decide that he's going to use the Latin script for introducing Somali as a written language throughout Somalia by fiat, more or less. This is the way it's going to be. You know, we're going to use the Latin script to make a written Somali language, and he has to. He has instructors instruct Somalians. All the Somalians in government positions have to be able to write the Latin script. Write Somali in Latin script. So he has to train all these people. So he has to get teachers out there. So these are soldiers, and they are supposed to also be able to write in Latin script. They are also going to be trained. And there's a bit here about Muhammad's success in this training. And I'm not going to go into it, but it's a good read also. So I probably should try going to something else further on, maybe. Now there's one here I like, it's really good, but I really hesitate to go into it. At the same time, you know, I'm really caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to bring out, events that I want people to read and feel for the first time in print. I don't want to give it to them. And then they already know the outcome, and then they want to go ahead. Because part of the story's draw is there's many suspenseful moments where you don't know what's going to happen. And that's, it's, to me, I think of it as more of, I guess I enjoy movies myself. You know, I don't like to know what's going to happen. I don't like to know. I like to be drawn in. I like that emotional experience of being drawn into a story. Yeah. So, and I value that, and I'm thinking many other people do. So I don't want to deprive them of that experience. So what we have here is this one. No, it's not like that. This is an explanation. Zia Bari's big plans. Okay, I like this one. It was becoming evident to all that Haile Selassie's rule over Ethiopia was falling apart. He was more concerned with how the West perceived Ethiopia than he was with governing the country. He could not prevent disorder within, neither civil nor military, nor could he convince the West he was in command of the situation. Internally, different groups were demanding democratic constitutional changes. Zia Bari saw an opportunity in the chaos that beset Ethiopia to mount an invasion to reclaim lands he believed belonged to Somalia, the Ogaden, the Afar area, and East Oromia. The UN ceasefire between the two countries was merely a delay. Now, to those who don't know what the ceasefire is about, is that there have been forays by rebel groups, supported actually by Zia Bari, to go into Ethiopia and try to take possession or disrupt military or in Ethiopia. So there was a ceasefire declared. An end to this. The UN wanted to put an end to this. Zia Bari's got, he's not supposed to cross that border. We'll have to work that issue out. In the meantime, no fighting. So that's what the ceasefire is about. And it has to do with the border between Ethiopia and Somalia because of Zia Bari's big plans. And he still maintains them in spite of the ceasefire. But that's what that camp was all about. And then you have he has a desire to bring back within the state of Somalia the lands that were, in a sense, Somalian lands. But really not in the same sense as they would be if he was to draw a border, because they were Somalian in practice. But borders, they didn't have borders. So that was not a part of the scene back then. So we have, in 1973, a meeting was set for April for all the military leaders of northern Somalia to attend in Hargeisa. The meeting's agenda included the construction of new camps to train recently drafted young men, the logistics of feeding and clothing them, the need for qualified trainers, and the purchase of weaponry for the new soldiers. Ali Nur, an Oromo officer who had served in the Somali military since the 1960s, would be arriving from Mogadishu with news and directives from President Zia Bari. Hadi, also attending the meeting, would present a progress report on the crash program. So this is context for what's going to happen. Hadi happened to be an officer at the crash program. A good man, actually. And Elinor unofficially assumed the chair of the meeting. He explained to the officers that he had been sent by Zia Bari to persuade Eastern Oromos of Arage to join forces with the Somalian military to fight the Ethiopians. Bari was under the impression the Oromos would identify with the Somalian nation, since they also lived in eastern Ethiopia with the Somali Ogadenis and the Afar. It is now or never, Elinor said, since the Oromo are wiping the sand out of their eyes and waking up to a sense of their identity as a nation in the making. They will no longer feel their only choice is between subjection to the Ethiopian government or the Somalian dictatorship. They will choose neither, but will demand recognition as a separate nation, Oromia. We have to move quickly. In other words, Elinor speaking on Zia Bari's behalf in this situation. Elinor had written orders for Mogadishu and went on to explain how he was going to find his way to Oromo. Now he's explaining to the people in the meeting. Went on to explain how he was going to find his way to Oromo Gilto's camp to convince the Oromo rebel leader to work alongside the Somalian military. It made more sense to join the Somalis in an invasion of eastern Ethiopia than it did to try to establish a force of Oromo soldiers without training or monetary support for guns and other military hardware. It would be impossible to win under such circumstances. Since all the participants in the meeting were Somali, they saw the reasoning in Ali Nur's approach. All but Hadi, who had witnessed the desertion of the Oromos from the crash program, except for Mohammed. He knew they were committed to a vision of an Oromo nation. However, Hadi's report put the crash program in a good light. The farm was doing well, the crops were abundant, and the farmers were good workers. Well trained, and would make good soldiers. The new military recruits were enthusiastic. Several of them were candidates for the leadership program and doing well. So he didn't want to make it sound too bad. After the meeting, Ali Nur met privately with Hadi. He asked him how the Oromos in the camp were faring. Hadi told him they all had deserted. See, he didn't tell them that they had deserted the group. He didn't say that. But now Ali Nur is speaking with him privately. He said, except for Mohammed Osman. Ali Nur was silent for a moment, surprised. Why did they leave? Hadi explained how they refused to pledge their allegiance to Ziad Barre. Their allegiance was only to the Oromo flag. They had come as volunteers to help, but they were not Somalis, and Somalia was not their nation. Who is this Mohammed Osman? Ali Nur asked. Hadi went on to describe Mohammed in glowing terms, recounting his exploits in the camp, how he had developed rapidly, showed good judgment, could act boldly when appropriate, and was a devout believer. In a nutshell, he was a natural leader. You would not know it to see him. Not too tall, quiet, and unassuming. Ali Nur listened thoughtfully. So that's, you can see how Mohammed Osman already stands out. He didn't leave the camp, he stayed with the camp. He has already made a good impression on the people in the camp. So he's already ahead of the game. He's in a good position in his quest to become an effective warrior. So I think this is what he's doing. And of course, it's going to be a warrior for peace and justice, not the warrior for domination of other peoples. So this is a significant difference in the concept of warrior, in my estimation. So, so then we have, and then he is treated quite well. But then, no, I won't go into this. But Ali Nur does meet Mohammed, and I think Ali Nur takes a quick liking to the man, to Mohammed. I think he really felt a lot. You know, this Mohammed does this to people. It's like, so he was quite taken. He says, "Oh, here's our young leader," when he first meets him. That's what his comment. But Ali Nur, what you find is not only is there an ambiguity as to relationships between the Somalis and the Oromo. I'm not talking about, and what I would not say that so much. An ambiguity is probably the wrong word, because what it is, it's a plastic relationship. In other words, it's flexible, a flexible relationship. It's a relationship that's mobile between the Somali and the Oromo. And so Ali Nur embodies this in his own person, because he will work for Ziad Barre because he does like the good life, Ali Nur. And at the same time, he can also further the interests of the Oromo and someone like Mohammed. So it's not really like he's being what's the word I want when you're, he's not really being deceitful in his behavior. He's not conflicted, no. He just sees advantage, and if you like help, I mean, he's like that. There's something about him that is not, but he pretty well gave to, right from the get-go, pretty well gave Mohammed his allegiance, that he would do whatever he could to further his future. So, and he did much for the Oromo, much for the Oromo as uh, as as for the Somali in the story. So uh, he's an interesting fellow because he's a chameleon in a lot of ways. So